afternoon in Spain. So, and welcome everyone on behalf of Andalusia Trade. My name is Marina Rodriguez, and I'm responsible in Sevilla for the offices of Andalusia Trade in Canada and also in the United States, as Lucia mentioned before. Thank you so much for being here and taking part of this webinar. Today, we will focus on the opportunities for the companies in the sector of interior design, decoration, and contract in Canada. My colleague, Lucia Vázquez, she is the director of Andalusia Trade's office in Canada. She will give us some more details about the content of this webinar, and also will introduce our speakers. And of course, you're very welcome to participate and send your questions or comments through the chat. If it's easier, you can send your comments in Spanish and we will translate them into English. So thank you very much again for your participation. And I give the floor to Uxia, please.
Thank you, Marina. Thank you so much for joining and welcome to the webinar about opportunities in the interior design contract, we call it contract sector in Canada. I will give a small presentation about the team here in Canada, also the activities that we have in the agenda for the rest of the year, if some of you are interested in booking with us. And then I introduce our speakers that you see already on your screen that will be sharing with us their insights about the in provinces of Quebec and Ontario. So to give you a little bit of an overview of the team, well, you already know me. My name is Lucia Vázquez. I'm the director of Andalusia Trade here in Canada. We have also with us today Camille Petel. She's the analyst and she's based in Montreal. And also as part of the team, Laura Naville, that probably some of you know from the past, and she's our partner, and she's also based in Montreal. A little bit about Canada. So Canada is a vast country divided in provinces and territories. Today we will cover especially the province of Ontario and Quebec and their specifications and differences. But I wanted to bring this map because of, well, to show you how big is Canada, but also to show you how many people do we live here. And it's 40 million people. So it's about the size of the Spanish population, to give you an idea of how spread this population is in Canada. I think it's important to put that into perspective. I wanted also to talk about our program, our agenda for the year. And so this is the first jornada técnica that we organized, the first webinar, but we have others planned for the rest of the year. If you are interested in any of those activities, please do not hesitate to reach out. We also have some slots open for agendas and sondeos from the month of April onwards. So do not hesitate to reach out to us if you are interested in the Canadian market. We can work with you on these projects. And now to the webinars. So first, we will be talking about Quebec, and then about the Ontario province. And at the end of the webinar, we have a Q&A session. I hope that the companies that are present here at the webinar today share with us their questions so we can have a dynamic conversation. I think that we are a small group, and that's totally
possible.
And without further ado, from Quebec, I want to introduce Marie-Claude Parenteau-Leboeuf. He is the General Director of the APDIQ. I hope that I pronounced that correctly. And he has been a vital part of the Quebec interior design community for over a decade. And since 2009, she has been actively involved with the association and since 2014, she's been the general director there. She's also renowned for her innovative work in object and interior design, and she has founded Mont Ruel, promoting eco-friendly design solutions. And Chelo Dueñas, she's an expert in real estate and brings a wealth of experience and a passion to the world of real estate, making her insights particularly valuable for those interested in the Canadian market. She's a proud member of Royal LePage, that is one of the most important real estate agencies here in Canada, and she also has experience in leasing, management, and maintenance, including overseeing renovation projects. So without further ado, I will give you the floor, Marie-Claude, so
yes,
you can share your presentation.
Thank you. I'm guessing you can see the presentation now. Can you confirm you see the presentation? Perfect. Excellent.
Yes.
Just a question for you, Lucia. I didn't see the map of Canada or the presentation, so I was wondering if this was something that showed but we couldn't see, or
you couldn't see my presentation.
No.
Well,
No.
I was sharing the whole time. I thought I was sharing the whole time.
Okay.
Well, there was a map of
we could
Canada.
probably go back. Yeah, we could probably show the map of Canada later on. I think it's important.
Yeah.
All right. So let me get started on this presentation. I apologize if for some of you who are watching. I wish I could do this presentation in Spanish. I can't, so I will do it not even in my home tongue. I'll do it in English. And if you have any questions, please stop me at any time. Because I've traveled a lot, I thought about you coming here and the things that should be remembered in general and specific about the conditions of how the practice in Quebec. And I'm sure Chelo will agree, and we've shared some of the things. So we're going to look at. Apologize. Hold on a second. We're going to look at shortly at the economic context in Quebec, and I think part of it will reflect on the rest of Canada as well. But each province, you have to understand that each province is a large territory, and economic factors may differ from one territory or one province to another. So you have to take that into account when you either decide to go to Ontario or Quebec or British Columbia or even or Manitoba for that matter. The climate is very important, regardless of where you are in Canada, but it is important because it is different from one province to another as well. And we will see that. So culturally, there are differences as well. And so I will talk about that a little bit. Our professionals and the industry practices in Quebec, which some of them are shared with the rest of Canada, some of them are possibly our own, and the laws or regulations that you have to remember, because we have a federal government which takes care of laws and regulations for the entire country, and we have laws and regulations for each provinces. So the economic context, the residential sector after the pandemic, which the construction business during the pandemic was unbelievably busy. People couldn't travel, and they spent residentially. They spent their money, Marianne, s'il te plaît, their money in renovating their spaces. So construction boomed, and we had a lot of cranes as well, a lot of construction happening. It slowed down a little bit in the last 12 months because of the recession, but only for the residential sector. Commercial and retail and institutional is still good, and it's still keeping up. And we include in there the multi-residential sector. Something that I think Chelo will cover as well is that we have a housing crisis in Canada. And so construction has not started yet really, but we reckon that in the next 12 to 18 months, it will pick up again in Quebec. All right. But for those of you who are more concerned with the commercial and retail development, or institutional for that matter, then these are still well positioned in 2024. Climate. All right, so we go from plus 30 to minus 30. So there's a 60 degrees difference in our temperature between summer and winter. And that has an impact on everything we do, how we live, and how materials react as well. So being in Andalusia, winter is actually quite warm for us. And 12 degrees Celsius is for us the spring or the fall. Right now, it's actually quite warm outside in Montreal. It's 2 degrees, but it was minus 18 last week. And so when selling products, whether it's for inside or outside, you have to remember that the resistance of material is important. And specificators, designers will ask you, architects will ask you about that, construction people, specialists will ask you about that. The insulation in project, the protection of specific material, what you put on certain material is super important. How you store materials and products is also important. So when you come here from an area where weather or temperature is not doesn't have an impact, you have to factor that in. When I write binding and unbinding, I mean glues. When if you put floor covering outside or inside, you have to take into consideration not only the material we will be walking on, but also what binds it to the surface. Slush, salt, and sand. That's our reality here. Okay, and that's the winter and spring reality. And what that means is that you have winter boots coming in with carrying salt, because we need de-icing. We carry sand because we try to use less salt because it's damaging to the environment, so on. So there's a lot of grinding material and a lot of corrosive material coming in. So if you are dealing with floor surfacing, then you have to take that into consideration as well. But if you're talking about windows, if you're talking about retail, for instance, if you have windows that are facing the street and that that little machines that plow the snow come and push the salt and and everything sometimes on the windows, because there's a lot of snow. You can have a meter high of snow in some areas because of snowfalls. You have to take that into account, okay? Or you have to work with someone who knows to take that into account and warn you about certain things. In and out. So we go from heat inside to air conditioning, which also has an impact on how the materials age, how they need to be maintained, need to be maintained in terms of longevity of the material, but also in terms of cleaning daily. So things like that are consideration that you will be facing a lot. Questions from specificators with that regard. Okay. How am I doing for time? Okay. Culture. La langue. We have a large number of Quebecers like myself who speak English, but it is not the language of communication, and the law here protects it. So I'm not talking to people who are not aware of that, because you have this situation in Spain where the language is also an issue, and not an issue, but a cultural aspect. And so here in Quebec, because we've been around for 400 years, we speak French. That's our language, and our laws protect it. So if you're an employer here in Quebec, you need to be able to speak French to your employees. Business is done in French, and the company representatives that you will be working with to sell your products in Quebec should speak French, right? one thing to remember, there's a very large Hispanic community here in Montreal and in Quebec. So you have a large number of people who speak fluently Spanish as their mother tongue and speak French as the tongue they learned here, either in school or they were brought up with. So that's a very nice aspect to remember. Key values and cues about us. We don't work long hours. We don't work until 7 o'clock at night. A lot of people will stop at 5, maybe 6, but that's the maximum. Okay, and I start by the bottom up of my list, but that's a very important thing to remember when you schedule meetings. We do business differently as well. Our hierarchy system is a little bit more fluid. We tend to make decisions more in group rather than a pyramid. I think I see Shallow agreeing maybe, but there's something about the way we function that, you know, entitles a lot more people to be part of the decision-making process. How's that? Selection of material and product will differ from other provinces because we like being different. We are different. Don't forget, we are from a Latin background, even though you will find that our Latin is very small compared to yours because we have also the British influence that's been with us for 200 years. So we are a very weird cultural mix, but we like things that are not necessarily subtle, and we like aesthetics that are different from the choices that people from Ontario or Manitoba or British Columbia will select. And the companies here will be able to tell you that. One thing that I've heard a lot that you should remember, the people who represent companies selling products here in Quebec have a very hard time making themselves understood or make the market here understood from head offices in Toronto, for instance, because the market is different. But if you have not experienced it, you can't understand how. And sometimes there's subtleties, but that's how it is. So that's in a nutshell what things that you should remember. I see questions popping up. Should I stop? No, I'm good. Yeah, okay, perfect. Professionals and their practice. Interior designers will practice within design firms. I think this is probably very common throughout, you know, either of our countries, architecture firms, public and private institutions like government, banks, or they are self-employed practitioners. My gosh, I have never seen in the time that I was in Andalusia as many design offices on the street, and it was awesome to see that. The self-employed practitioners are a little bit more difficult to reach because they're on their own, and if they don't belong to a professional association or they're part of a professional group, they're harder to reach. All right, so our association here is one of the means for people to receive news, okay? But the distributors will also be one way to reach those people. Technical information is key, and I think the climate aspect gave you a bit of a hint on that, but the knowledge of how products behave and how they react to the environment is extremely important. The warranties on the product, right? The shelf life or the installation lifetime is very important. Specification on how to use the product, how to apply it, or demonstration of how the product works. Which enables the practitioners to specify on their plans exactly to the construction crew how to install certain things. A good thing is also to validate your products with construction crews because they're the one installing them, and they will be able to tell you how they would react to certain environment if that is the case. To conclude, laws and regulations. You have to remember that, first of all, Quebec works with the Napoleonic civil law system, which is different than the rest of Canada, which functions with the common law system, okay? That's an important point. The federal regulations from the Canadian government, which takes care of the protection of the environment, the importations, the National Building Code. Those are the things that you need to be aware of, but also the provincial laws. In Quebec, we have a law that protects French. It's called Bill 101. We have the protection of the consumer. And so there are a number of things like the Régie du Bâtiment, which is the organization that controls general entrepreneurs. Okay, it's like it's guidelines, and they have to behave a certain way and do things a certain way. So they have registered numbers. We have a code of construction in Quebec. We also have a building code in Quebec. We have the Architects Act, and we have municipal regulations, all of which may or may not impact the product that you will be, bringing in. But you need to be aware of those because they have an impact on how we specify our products and what we can and cannot place on a project, depending if it's commercial or residential. And the laws are different in Ontario, and they are different in Manitoba or Nova Scotia or anywhere else. So those subtleties are very important to take into account. That's it for me.
Thank you so much, Marie-Claude, for sharing these fantastic insights. I think that you touch a lot of different and important points from everything in regulations, the climate, also the aesthetics, and how cultural difference can impact also the choices that people make in this interior design, in pieces of furniture or other decisions that they might take. I have a couple of questions on my side, but I'm gonna keep them to the end of the presentation. I will give the floor to Chelo and to continue with the presentation, and then we can go back to this part of the discussion. So Chelo, whenever you are ready, you're welcome.
Sí, hola, buenas tardes, Andalucía. Estaba dudando en hacer la presentación en inglés o en español, pero me parece que voy a continuar con español y voy a intentar hacer un poquito de inglés as well. Bueno, pues os cuento un poquito de cómo el sector inmobiliario trabaja aquí, porque tiene un impacto también en la presentación y en la industria. Los agentes inmobiliarios tenemos que trabajar para una agencia inmobiliaria que llamamos un brokerage. Pues bueno, llevo un poquito de presentación personal. Soy de Córdoba y he vivido antes en Alemania y en Londres, y ahora pues llevo casi 17 años en Toronto. Trabajo como un real estate broker para Royal LePage Equity, que es una de las agencias canadienses más importantes de Canadá en bienes raíces, y nuestro porcentaje de participación en la industria es del 35%. Voy a hablar un poquito del crecimiento de lo que es de Ontario y más específicamente de Toronto. Yo estoy basada en Toronto y en general Canadá es un país bastante joven y por sí está creciendo en sí mismo. Toronto es el sector quizás o la ciudad, una de las ciudades más importantes en cuestión de el sector financiero está aquí, el sector tecnológico también está aquí. Tenemos un gran flujo de compañías tecnológicas de diferentes tipos, de inteligencia artificial, de bioinformática, de fintech, etcétera. ¿Qué es lo que impulsa el crecimiento de la población de Toronto? Evidentemente impulsa el crecimiento y la demanda de viviendas y de nuevas infraestructuras. Además tenemos muchísimos proyectos de construcción residenciales, comerciales, de oficina, de infraestructura. Y bueno, pues en general Canadá es un país con una prosperidad económica y una estabilidad económica política. Entonces, muy atractivo tanto para inversionistas, para personas que se quieren mudar aquí y para compañías. La industria en general de la construcción, yo lo voy a de alguna forma explicar desde la perspectiva de real estate, de la voy a mezclar un poquito en inglés, del sector inmobiliario. Tenemos proyectos residenciales, comerciales y de infraestructura. Los residenciales, en la parte especialmente de Toronto, tenemos proyectos de construcción de condominios, que son apartamentos de pisos. Tenemos pisos de 50, 60 plantas. Tenemos muchísimos proyectos en construcción, que es un concepto bastante nuevo, el concepto de vivir en un piso. Cuando yo llegué aquí, el centro de Toronto y muchas zonas que ahora son barrios con bloques de pisos, con rascacielos, muy parecido a Nueva York, no existían. Es bastante nuevo en ese sentido. También se están construyendo viviendas unifamiliares, sobre todo en las afueras, en la parte del GTA, que es la zona periférica de lo que es la ciudad de Toronto. Y, por supuesto, se están creando empresas, se están viendo empresas a lo que es a Toronto, y no solamente en Toronto, también en London, Ontario, en Hamilton, y, por tanto, hay demanda también de oficinas y de espacios comerciales. Con eso también el gobierno está invirtiendo. Se están creando viviendas, se están creando espacios comerciales. También se tiene que invertir en infraestructura. Tenemos grandes proyectos de infraestructura, especialmente de transporte, de servicios públicos, de hospitales, etcétera. Tenemos algunas compañías internacionales españolas que llevan años aquí en Toronto o en Canadá, y están haciéndose cargo de estos proyectos fantásticos. Están transformando la ciudad. Me gustaría hablar un poquito de los números de lo que se está construyendo en Ontario. Si veis un poquito la gráfica que tengo aquí que presento, estamos construyendo desde el año 2011, construyendo muchas viviendas, ¿no? El año 2021 se construyeron casi 100.000, el año 2022 96.000, pero todavía no es suficiente. Como Marie-Claude mencionó, estamos ante una crisis de la vivienda en general en Canadá. Yo me voy a centrar un poco más en Toronto, en Ontario quizás, que necesitamos 1.085.000.000 de viviendas. Esto se debe, pues, al crecimiento de la ciudad, como indicaba antes, pero también al número de inmigrantes que están llegando a Canadá, unos 500.000 al año. El gobierno canadiense, en este momento tenemos a un gobierno liberal y está muy abierto a políticas migratorias. Por tanto, es el flujo muy importante. Somos de uno de los países, quizás, no me atrevería a decir el país más abierto a inmigración, pero, por supuesto, uno de los más tiene más oportunidades. Al mismo tiempo, también me gustaría mencionar la escasez que tenemos de empleados en la construcción. Solo en Ontario tenemos 72.000. Es un dato estimado debido a la gran demanda, como hemos dicho antes, de la construcción y también de la renovación. Hay muchos clientes que, en lugar de optar de comprar construcción nueva, optan por la renovación de sus propias viviendas o de una compra y una renovación de esa vivienda también. Las operaciones de compraventa de propiedades en Toronto en el año 2023 fueron de 1.266 operaciones. El precio medio de una casa en Toronto está por encima de $1.000.000 canadienses, y un piso, precio medio también, estamos entre $700.000. La estimación, como digo, de nuevos condos que se están construyendo en Toronto son unos 32.000 en el año 20 y 23. Entonces, en general, como veis, las gráficas de construcción, especialmente en residencial, bueno, pues se mantiene ahí, ¿sabes? A unos 100.000 o por debajo de los 100.000 viviendas que se están construyendo, que son muy poquitos, el número todavía es muy poquito con lo que necesitamos, ¿no? Voy a hablaros un poquito del diseño de los condos, de las tendencias que tenemos aquí, pues con la idea, con el objetivo de que entendáis nuestras estructuras, quizás. Tenemos una arquitectura en Canadá, como dije, es un país bastante nuevo. Las casas son de construcción principalmente de madera y, por tanto, se necesita una renovación muy frecuente y un mantenimiento de las casas muy frecuente. En cuestión de condos, por ejemplo, la arquitectura es muy moderna y contemporánea y tenemos pues, materiales como de vidrio, acero y hormigón. Aquí normalmente tenemos inviernos, y hablo un poco también del tiempo, inviernos bastante largos y con poca luz. Entonces se utiliza mucho lo que es el vidrio y las torres de apartamentos, muchas de ellas son completamente de vidrio, ¿no? de ventanas. El diseño en general interior y también un poco en el exterior es minimalista, diseño mixta con líneas limpias, colores neutros y materiales de alta calidad. Todo va a depender también del tipo de condominio o de edificio que se esté construyendo. Evidentemente, hay edificios que se construyen principalmente para inversores, con muchos apartamentos de un dormitorio, y luego también, por otra parte, tenemos edificios, pues quizás para un cliente con unas tendencias más de alta calidad y, por tanto, los materiales que se utilizan en las terminaciones son diferentes. Es importante también pensar que se pasa mucho tiempo dentro de casa y se da mucha importancia dentro de los pisos, de los condominios, de los bloques, a los espacios comunitarios. Cada vez más dentro del edificio se están creando zonas comunitarias. Tradicionalmente siempre había un gimnasio, una zona, por ejemplo, que tenía una cocina, una sala, lo que se llama una party room. En los edificios más nuevos ya estamos hablando no del tipo de gimnasios de una sala de un gimnasio, sino complejos muy sofisticados de gimnasios, áreas de coworking, terrazas comunes con espacios de barbacoas y jardines compartidos. En el interior, el espacio, tenemos lo que se llama el open concept, el espacio abierto y multifuncional. La mayoría de los edificios que están creando, tenemos muchas creaciones de apartamentos de un dormitorio, algunos estudios, pero no son muy atractivos a la hora de la compra-venta, pero sí tenemos un gran número de apartamentos, o de un porcentaje de los apartamentos que son de un dormitorio, un one bedroom. Luego también tenemos, por ejemplo, aquellos de un one plus den, que se tratan de un dormitorio y un pequeño espacio para trabajar. Son muy atractivos los de 2 dormitorios y menos los de 3 dormitorios. Hay muy poquitos dentro de un edificio nuevo. Los apartamentos de 3 dormitorios es un número muy, muy pequeño. Tenemos, pues eso. Perdón.
Perdona, Chelo. I think, Marie-Claude, you wanted to say something? Or...
Oh, I couldn't see I can only see my presentation, so please go ahead. Yes.
I saw the question about the size of the apartments, and it's a bit, and Chelo, you might be able to better explain it in Spanish, but there is a paradigm, or there's a confrontation of in terms of space. Canada is a big country, and we have a lot of space to build. Okay, and so we're used to, for instance, larger homes and things like that. But as a matter of fact, some of the apartments that are being built right now, the condos, are rather small. Okay, so there is a conflict of cultural. I don't know how to say that, but in terms of like how we envision space and what we make of it seems to be in a confrontational space right now. And so, but one thing that you have to remember is that despite the fact that we may be building right now to condense and to be more efficient about the space that we use, we have a notion that space is in abundance. All right. So that brings into the architecture and the conceptualization from an architecture and design point of view, a different way of seeing than having to condense people, because in Europe everything has to be in, you know, better planned, tighter spaces, right? So there's an impact sometimes in terms of what we do here that has to do with the fact that the notion of space is completely different. That's all I want to say.
Great.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. I'm so sorry I'm not able to see the speakers. I'm just able to see my presentation for some reason. I'm not sure if maybe I do this or I have to go back.
No, we can still see your presentation. There was a question asking if the apartments are small in Canada, and I think that because you were speaking, you were saying that some of them are 1-bedroom apartment, and it's rare to find apartments of 3 bedrooms as well. Yes.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
But that,
go ahead.
It depends on who is the developer, what the market is for, right? And so that has to be taken into consideration. What projects you're working on, who's developing, and who is the person or who is the investor. In Montreal, there is a regulation now that impacts the building of multiple residential segment, where you have to factor in social living. And I'm not talking about shared space, but I'm talking about low rent or low income rental places. And so there are different factors depending on which city you are in and what the new regulations are as well. So the sizes of apartment may be one thing, but that's just one aspect. The other might be what the building needs to include now. So residential, commercial, and offices, for instance, there are new things like that that are starting to appear in our window right now in front of us.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you. Like the things depending on the building, depending on where the building is located as well. And it depends on what the builder, you know, if it's aimed to attract more investors as opposed to end users or condo owners as well. In terms of like the size of the apartments are actually you can find apartments, a 1-bedroom apartment for under 500 square feet, which is like about 45 square meters of, you know, or so. But they are making the apartments smaller, especially in Toronto. It is true that Toronto is very North American in the sense of like people live in the homeowners live in big houses and residential areas like in North York, and with like, you know, what we see in movies with bungalows and all on 1 floor or 2 floor houses. If you are in the more urban area, you're gonna find Victorian houses from 2 to 3 stories houses, and some of them have been renovated, some of them have not. However, the condos is a very interesting concept because I don't think Canadians have a concept of living in a condo before. Were the condos older buildings, 40 or 50 years old? Yes, they were, but I don't know how to say that without being judgmental, but most people lived in houses. They rather go farther and live in a house than live in a condo. There are also rental condos as well. Now I see a switch in the mentality, in the concept, in the living concept of Canadians or Torontonians, in the sense of they don't need a 3,000 or 5,000 square feet house, especially baby boomers. They are now moving into condos, big condos though, like maybe 1,600 square feet. But they're moving from a house to a condo, and most of them are very happy. We also have different demographics and younger generations, and I don't want to be mistaken or sound, is that they prefer to be downtown Toronto than being commuting. That's my perspective. And it's very interesting because when they first started building condos downtown, they were not selling so quickly. The price per square foot for a new construction was actually cheaper than for a resale price per square footage. Now it's not. No, now pre-construction is more expensive, usually more expensive than resale price per square footage. But interesting how, you know, the demographics have changed and the need of the country and the concept, how people see, you know, a different type of living. There's still there people who are going to be buying big houses as well. So, and that's different, you know, the different products that they're going to be using as well. If it's going to be big condo, they're going to be doing basic construction product or finishes, as opposed to like a high-end house that is built in Forest Hill, which is one of the most expensive areas in Toronto. Yeah, so just go back to my presentation, quizás en español. Me cambio a español un poquito. Espacios interiores, pues bueno, espacios abiertos y funcionales. Y también, pues bueno, tecnología integrada, sistemas de automatización del hogar. Hay edificios que ya vienen con wifi para todo el edificio y por supuesto hay ciertos builders, ciertos constructores que quieren implementar pues energías green energy, energías limpias, me parece en español. Pongo como ejemplo, quería daros como un ejemplo, productos de cuarto de baño, pues bueno, los baños son modernos, elegantes. Creo que también la tendencia canadiense, yo creo que ya estamos hablando un poco de una tendencia global en cuestión al diseño. Yo sigo mucho el mercado, el sector inmobiliario en España también, me interesa y muchísimos productos que hay en España son fantásticos y de diseño y se podrían exportar perfectamente a Canadá. Tenemos, bueno, pues si los espacios son pequeños, pues baños eficientes, ya se aplica a todo tipo de producto también. Tenemos tecnología inteligente, iluminación LED, igual que en España, y accesorios de alta gama. Azulejos, pues bueno, es otro producto en el que pensé que se podría exportar a Canadá. Tenemos la presencia de Porcelanosa en Toronto con una tienda fantástico, ¿no? Pues mobiliario de baño, accesorios de grifería, grifos, cabezales, etcétera. Hay tanto potencial, tantos productos que realmente podríamos pasarnos hablando horas sobre productos de cuarto de baño. Bueno, pues terminando un poquito, oportunidades de mercado, como ya indicaba Marie-Claude, este es un paisaje muy regulado, es una industria regulada tanto por el gobierno federal como provincial, como la municipalidad, la ciudad de Toronto en este caso, por ejemplo. Y existe, bueno, una visión general de códigos de construcción y estándares bueno, en Toronto y en cualquier ciudad o provincia de Canadá. Evidentemente, esto afectará dependiendo del producto que estéis intentando exportar, ¿no? En el sentido de que hay productos de decoración o de muebles, quizás, por ejemplo, pues de accesorios de baño, evidentemente bueno, no estoy 100% segura de que no haya regulación, pero la regulación va a ser mínima en comparación con la exportación, por ejemplo, de ventanas, ¿no? Es importante entender, estudiar la cadena de suministro, cómo se puede entrar y, por supuesto, que OSIA y su equipo puede asesoraros más en este sentido, comprender la dinámica en la cadena de suministro, el mercado de la construcción, pues, bueno, contactar proveedores locales, contratistas, constructores, diseñadores. Por supuesto, son una fuente de información y unos contactos fantásticos en la ejecución del proyecto, ¿no? Y luego, pues, en consideraciones de la inversión, pues, evaluar un poco el coste de la entrada, de la distribución y de los esfuerzos del marketeo, de marketing. y riesgos potenciales, fluctuación de moneda, cambio regulatorio, en la competencia, estudiar bien la competencia para que vuestro producto sea muy competitivo también, y diferencias culturales y preferencias del consumidor en el mercado de Toronto aplicable al mercado canadiense. Una de las cosas con las que me gustaría terminar mi charla es que la marca España, la marca Europa, the branding, lo que es el marketeo de la marca Europa y España, creo que es importante. Y una comparación quizás muy graciosa es que en España nos encantan las cosas americanas en general, ¿no? Pensamos que lo americano bueno, pues no sé, no atrae. Aquí es al contrario, en el momento que un producto se vende como algo, además, tanto en el mercado norteamericano en general, ves anuncios con énfasis en marca europea o diseño europeo, diseño español y, ¿por qué no? Claro, marca española, ¿no? Y bueno, pues nada, esta es mi presentación por hoy. Muchísimas gracias por atender. Cualquier pregunta, cualquier ayuda, ahí tenéis mi contacto por email, mi teléfono y mi cuenta de social media, pues si necesitáis alguna ayuda. Y no sé si tienen alguna pregunta ahora. Gracias.
Muchísimas gracias, Chelo. Muchísimas gracias por la presentación y por todos los diferentes insights que has compartido con nosotras. Creo que, bueno, las dos habéis mostrado que hay muchas cosas que tener en cuenta a la hora de mirar al mercado canadiense. I'm gonna switch to English just to and get the Q&A going. I will encourage the companies to share their questions. It can be in Spanish. Podéis hacer las preguntas en español tanto en el chat como en la parte de preguntas y respuestas que tenemos habilitada. If any of you want also to, you can write on the chat. We can give you access to the microphone if you prefer as well. And we are a small group of 12 people attending the conference, so I think that there is an opportunity for that as well. But if there is no questions from, or as we wait for the companies to share their questions, I do have a couple of questions for you, because you touched on something very important, and is the cultural aspect. How does it impact the decisions that consumers make here in Canada? So on one side, I wanted to ask you to what extent it is important, or how can we give advice to the Andalusian companies in terms of what are the Canadians looking for, or how to better market their products to the Canadian taste, and taking into account also those differences between Ontario and Quebec. And then a second question that has to do with, you mentioned that the European branding, the European products are very well regarded here in Canada. It is important for sure to make, well, to market those products correctly, but at the same time, to what extent is the market willing to take European products, and in which price range as well? So, and I wanted to get those two questions first, and then we see already like some questions on the chat. So, and Marie-Claude, if you want to start, just whoever open your microphone and please share.
How to market? Well, I mean, anybody will enter a market. There's a very interesting question I saw in the chat, and I'm going to touch on the entering the market with a LEED certified or a well certified product. I think it is something that will definitely be speaking to specificators in Quebec and in Ontario and the rest of Canada in architecture or interior design firms. If it's an environmentally friendly product, if if it passes a LEED certification or a WELL certification, then you're entering the market with an asset that a lot of products yet have to get. All right, so that's an interesting perspective for environmentally friendly products. I think the signature, as Chelo was saying earlier, the signature of Spanish design might be also an interesting aspect of how you enter a market, because a lot of products are coming from Canada, from the United States, and a little bit everywhere around the world, and the signature brand might be an interesting aspect. Chelo, you want to add to that? That's what I can think of right now.
I mean, absolutely. It's hard to give a general idea of how, companies may enter the Canadian market, because it's all going to depend on the product at the end of the day, and to look into like, what do we have in Canada? It's not an easy black and white answer for me. What I'm saying, we were discussing before the presentation, how it might be an opportunity regarding construction and the market, how it is the market right now. We were mentioning like there is a slowdown in the construction market. And when I do construction, I mean also furniture, home decor, like it's a big market, real estate in general. It has a slowdown in the last few months, but we're hoping it's gonna pick up, because we need to pick up and build more houses, and people are renovating houses. The market is very fluid regarding real estate. There's tax advantages when people sell their own houses. They are not taxed. So people actually move out a lot, and that's why the market is very fluid. And when they move out, they come and renovate as well. In terms of entering the market, we'll just have to sit down with a specific product and do like a little bit of market research to be able to provide more insight. It is true that you can buy a faucet, un grifo, you can buy a faucet for a kitchen, para la cocina, for $130 Canadians for a simple faucet. But you can also spend $1,500 for a kitchen, bathroom, or more. I mean, the options are amazing. And is there a market that for somebody who's going to pay a $1,500, for a faucet in the kitchen? Yes, there is. And those are the expensive, luxurious home that we have. And we don't have one or two luxurious home. We have more than many luxurious home, or like the average market price for a house is $1 million. To buy like a decent home in Toronto, you're gonna have to go to like $2 million home. So go ahead.
I think there's something that you touched upon, Chelo, earlier, and is the generation factor. So we have an aging population in Canada, and so our baby boomers are retiring or have started to retire, and it's a large percentage of the population, which means that this aging population is also in need of elements in their home. If they want to remain at home longer, they need elements in the plumbing, in the furniture that is more accessible. So we're talking possibly about touchless, products, something that you don't have to manipulate because your hands are. I mean, we're talking about accessibility here. And so and we're still into the LEED and the WELL certification here, because accessible products that are helping accessibility to people is a huge factor. We're about to start building in Quebec what we call the seniors home, new home that will house people with special needs when they're aging. We already have that. We're getting ready to build more, and so that is an aspect specific type of furniture for aging people, no chairs without armrests, those types of things. So that is something that you may want to consider when entering the market right now, without forgetting about all the young ones who are buying condos and are, moving into smaller spaces and need furniture that needs to fit into plans that have been designed for smaller places.
For sure. Fantastic. So we have I think that we have answered the first two questions in the chat, and we have another question that it says, what kind of furniture manufacturing there is in Canada, and where do they normally import from? Furniture like chairs, sofas, and upholstered, and colchones, mattress. Sorry for the mattress. So if you have an idea of where the production is in Canada at the moment, and where those products normally, what do you see in the market? If you have an idea, and you can answer this question.
I can answer by saying that there are organizations in Canada who will be there to help you find those information. If I answer the question in a more general format, there are large distributors, the same way you have in Europe. There are in Spain or in Europe, you have large distributors that do specializes in mattresses and things like that. But you also have companies that are wholesalers or that do specific business with large projects only. So I guess the answer is the same as if you were trying to put your product in France or in Germany. I mean, things are not that much different. Maybe it's more of the business aspect of how you reach them and how you conclude a business venture with them that might be different. In terms of, I want to answer a question which has Marina asked about the paint, but in general, if you're going to, if an interior designer or an architect wants to specify LEED certified products, for instance, the companies here will put forward this information, okay, and will actually sell their products with that tag, so that specificators, professionals will actually know that they can source this type of paint because it is LEED certified. Windows have like how many layers of glazing that answers the LEED certification, platinum certification. Those are the things that are branded on the products when they are advertised, if you will, to specificators, or whether they are architects or interior designers.
Perfecto. Great. To piggyback a little bit on this, for sure, we can help if you have specific requirements about the Canadian market, and you want to know more about the production and imports, we can for sure offer you a sondeo. I believe it was Juan Carlos. Juan Carlos, si estás interesado en tener más información sobre cuestiones concretas, sobre el mercado canadiense, podemos trabajar contigo en un sondeo. And now, because time is running and we only have 2 minutes left, we have one last question or two more questions, sorry, coming, and then we'll be wrapping up the webinar. And this question is from Marcos de Claroflex, and he is inquiring about aluminum enclosure systems, if they are well regarded, or if they are usually used in Canada, or if there are in more classic windows with double or triple glazing.
It's a very good question. If you, Cello, if you allow me to start first, Canada is a big producer of aluminum, and it is a product that we use a lot. You have to remember, and I was talking about sludge, salt, and sand, that anything that's metal in Canada will rust very quickly. And so aluminum is an interesting product because it is, it has a non-corrosive, or it's protected against corrosion somehow. So of course, anything that's aluminum is well regarded here, whether there are windows or, anything else. But last thing, aluminum is also a great conductor of heat and cold. So in a climate like ours, things need to be considered when using aluminum. There you go.
Okay, very good points. Fantastic. And then the other question, it is for Cello. Cello said that the architecture in Canada is modern and contemporary. My question is if there are construction of residential houses using rustic and artisanal tiles like encaustic cement tiles and natural clay tiles. In general, if there are markets for handmade tiles in general, and if there are importers.
Okay, yes, so when I was just discussing the contemporary and modern design, I was more discussing like condo buildings. However, we do have tons of houses, different type of properties as well, like in urban areas. We do have Victorian houses, Tudor style homes, and these are like 100 and 150 years old houses, or and people do renovate and they keep the design and they want to keep the aesthetics of the architecture, and they do buy molding and they buy windows that go with the house. So there is a mix of like properties in Canada, generally speaking, and definitely people who like rustic style, they're gonna buy rustic tiles. The only thing is that I will mention is that because of the climate, we don't usually use tiles in the living spaces, in the bedroom spaces. We may use tiles in the kitchen or in the entry area, outdoor tiles too. Tiles you may want to think about in the kitchen for backsplash, or in the bathrooms as well, wall tile and floor tiles. We have different designs, and people do renovate a lot because of the climate as well, and because they move a lot. Generally, people consume a lot. I just want to say that we were talking at the question, I didn't have a chance about furniture. People buy furniture all the time. You go for a ride with your car and you see new furniture, sitting in front of the lawn. People always buy furniture and they buy things all the time, home decor, every 4 to 5 years, so not often. They move to a new house, and when they move to a new house, they leave the furniture. Also rental apartments, they are unfurnished normally, so people buy furniture for the rental apartments, and when you move out, you can't leave the furniture behind, so the new tenant, they have to get rid of it, and the new tenant that is coming in is going to buy a new furniture. So yeah, so this to the question about the tiles, and definitely there's a different type of tiles, but I think we can do, I've seen some of the tiles in Spain, and I think we can do better, especially specifically in tiles.
Yeah.
If I may continue on the tile aspect, do not forget, and in Quebec, I don't know about Toronto, but in Quebec, we are restaurant people. And there are a lot of restaurants. We have more restaurants per capita in Montreal than any other places. And so if you're talking about tiles, that may be your market, funnily enough. If the tile has a resistance to commercial use instead of residential use. Cello is right. We don't put tiling on our floors except for the bathroom and maybe the kitchen. We are wood people. Canada is a woodland, and we use wood flooring. It's warmer in a cold climate, so if people are using tiles, they will be putting heated floors, right, under the tiles now, which is a technology that wasn't used before, which meant we weren't thinking about using tiles because in the winter, 6 months of the year, if you're walking barefoot, your feet are freezing. So you have to, you know, and so vertical surfaces are much more a tile receptive area for us than the horizontal surfaces. But the commercial aspect of tiling is very important and is also, maybe I misunderstood a bit of the question, but think about what goes on when we come in with our feet or boots wet from snow. So the tiles that we put on the ground in commercial areas need to be non-slippery tiles. That is an aspect that you may consider when you're next to the beach, but here it's not even when it's raining, it's when it's snowing, it's what we bring in. And so the risk of injuries with slippery tiles is large, okay? Whether you're barefoot or you're wearing boots. So that's something that's very important to remember.
Fantastic, great. There is one last question in regards to the bathroom area. Do Canadians invest in the bathroom, or they treat it as a secondary piece in the house? Chelo?
It's very important. Chelo, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say you are the interior designer, so I do feel, yeah, we do invest in bathrooms, even though we may not spend a lot of time there, but Canadians like nice bathrooms, and they're usually, again, it all depends on the space, condo versus a house. If you have a house, you're gonna have a nice bathroom with 5 pieces of like you want to have the bathtub, double vanity, you know, in like primary bedrooms, you normally want to have an ensuite bathroom, and then there you're going to have double sink, or double vanity. You want to have a bathtub, and then you're going to have a shower, separate shower. And it all depends on the budget, but people are spending a lot on, you know, you can buy a beautiful bathtub for you know, $1,000, you're gonna spend like, you know, 5,000, 6,000, I'm sure even more. And Mary Claude will be able to give you more information on that. Yeah.
Actually, one thing that I'm still laws and regulations. I think in this needs to be verified, but as far as I know, when you construct something here, at least in Quebec, a bathtub is mandatory. Maybe it's the old building code. I need to verify that, but you need to check that because that's interesting. Because if every new house needs to have a bathtub, in order for people, and it's an accessibility issue, then that could be also an interesting point of entry.
I don't think that's the case in Ontario. Again, we'll have to verify that. But normally, if you build a house, you're going to build a house with 3 or more bathrooms. And I'm speaking generally about building houses, or even townhouses. You want to have like at least 3 to 4 bathrooms in a house. People like their bathrooms, you know. They're not going to have a 2-bed, you know, like a house with just 2 bathrooms. They're going to have 2.5 or 3 plus. And in that case, you want to have maybe a bathroom with a bathtub. Absolutely. I don't know for sure if you need one regarding the bylaws. I'm not sure about that.
For more specifications and to get deeper into the bylaws and to understand better the market, we encourage also the companies to follow up with us. I think that both of you shared as well your contact information for the companies if they would like to reach out to you. We will be also sharing the presentation on Andalucía Trade We will share with you the link to the webinar. And once again, thank you so much to the speakers for being with us, for sharing their insights, to the companies for participating in the webinar, asking these thoughtful questions. And we hope that soon enough we'll have some of these companies here in Canada with us, and we are able to work with all of you. Marie-Claude, and they are asking for your email. If someone can share it on the chat, or if not, we can share it with with you. Please send us.
I will share the I will share the email of the person here who's responsible to being in touch with the product industries, if you don't mind.
For sure.
So and she'll be flooded with your questions. I'm sure she'll be happy to talk to you, and I will be behind her to help her answer any of the questions if need be. All right. So Danielle, I know you're online, so I'm sharing your email right now.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right. I think that we can wrap up the webinar. And again, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Good luck, everybody. Thank you.